Hello, welcome back to another insightful episode of the Leaders in Conversation with your host, Nomazibulo Tshanga. Today, I'm not alone as usual. I'm with Siphiwe Moyo. I'm not going to delve into who is Siphiwe, what does he do. He is going to tell us more of his career journey, his contribution into the leadership space, and the instrumental role that is playing within the fraternity of human behavior and HR professional.
With Nomazibulo Tshanga.
So Siphiwe, thank you and welcome.
Thank you, Noma. Thank you very much. I'm busy concentrating on my flat stomach.
He needs to have his flat stomach, guys. We need to make sure that the cameras make him slimmer than he is, right? And I love that. So I must make it known, guys, just to break the ice. So I contacted Siphiwe for season 1 of the Leaders in Conversation. Just to give some history and background. So I have been following Siphiwe for quite some time. I think for the past 12 to 15 years, right, in the industry as an HR professional while I was in corporate with the SAPPP as a member, etc. I was the president at the time, etc. But we'll talk into that. So I knew of him and I knew of his work. I've watched him. So I was like, okay, this girl, young girl, let me reach out, man, to the old Kroti and see what he's gonna say because I love his work, etc. I reach out to him, send him an email. He does not know me, of course, because he meets a lot of people in the engagements that you are normally invited to speak at, etc. He first declines my offer, citing reasons known to him and to myself. And we then bump into each other again at the IPM conference last year. And I said to him, I am that girl that you rejected off the podcast, and I still need you on the podcast. So guys, people's time is important. I think that's the message I want to give, that people's time is important. People just don't go to people that don't know. People work with people that they trust. So because we've built a rapport at the IPM and we have engaged, we spoke, so you could remember that when I do send the email, oh, it's the Noma that I met. So we don't randomly go to people. I mean, it's the 21st century now. We don't do that. So thank you so much. It's such an honor to be speaking with you as someone who I feel like I have been your protege over the years, watching over your work and how you do your things. And congratulations and well done on the successful career that you've enjoyed in the profession.
Thank you so much.
Welcome to the Leaders in Conversation.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Thanks for that beautiful story. I think that lesson that you have already mentioned is such a great lesson that, you know, people do business with people they know, at least they've met, there's a bit of connection. So thank you. It made me look bad, but it's still fine.
It's still fine. It is good now. It is good now. So with your background in human behavior within the workplace context, could you share insights into the evolving challenges and the opportunities related to employee motivation and coping with organizational change, especially in the context of global events, especially of what we've experienced in the past years, COVID, the future world of work changing, etc.?
Yeah, I think the last few years changed everything, but there's a lot of leaders who are trying to go back to what they know. It's so interesting that when I engage with some of our clients in corporate, everybody's kind of like trying to go back to the way things were before COVID, which I think is a wasted crisis in my view, because the world is not the same. And one of the things that really happened is that because talented people have seen better, when you try to go back to the pre-COVID world, you are going to lose the talented people. They have options, they've seen better, there's remote work, there is hybrid work. People have managed to tap into, to understand how creative they are in their spaces, in their gardens, and so on, because there's a level of creativity that comes from different environments. So I think one of the things that happened is that organizations need to be agile. organizations need to be adaptable. But also, when you think about motivation and organizational change, which is what you asked me, then it means that employees as well needs to be
adjust
and need to be adaptable as well. So you have these two elements of organizational adaptability and agility, but as well as employee adaptability and agility. As employees, we need to be quite adaptable because we really don't know the futures that we're looking at. I think people who can imagine multiple futures, people who focus on how we think instead of what we think about, those are the kinds of employees that are generally going to thrive because of some of the changes that you have spoken about. So people who are self-motivated, people who are adaptable, because organizational change is now at the rate and pace like we've never seen before. So if you have somebody who is not agile, it's going to be a problem. I think about this a lot in the context of, many years ago when we thought about learning and career development, we've always believed that people should build depth in whatever they have. We called that I careers. You go deeper in whatever you've studied for. But because of what you are mentioning around the changing landscape, we really need T employees, we need T individuals who going to have depth in your own skill, but you're going to have have breadth and know a little bit more
on other
facets of life.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. So as an expert in leadership, what are some of the key principles and practices that help leaders cultivate optimism, hope, and resilience? Because I think that's the most important thing, especially in the evolving, ever-changing landscape of corporate and even leadership in general, and even in entrepreneurship space. I mean, things are changing. But what are the practices and principles that can equip leaders in order for them to be resilient and optimistic in these times where interest rates are just high, inflation is not favorable, political landscape is unstable, people are migrating into other countries, talent is migrating, because when people are moving, talent is migrating. So what are those principles that you can equip leaders with? Yeah,
that's such a good question. First of all, it becomes very clear to me that we really don't need leaders much when things are going well.
Yeah.
When the organization is doing well, we're all on autopilot, we know what to do, we don't need leaders much. We need leaders when times are really, really tough. And that's why the question that you're asking me about cultivating optimism, resilience, and I guess hope is very important, because that's where you show leadership.
You're true.
That's where you need a leader. That's where you need someone who's going to take responsibility and say, I'm not going to allow this team to wallow in self-pity. I'm not going to allow this team to wallow in the challenges that we are facing. And I think, cultivating hope, resilience, and optimism is fascinating for me, because the first thing that leaders must understand is that when things are tough, employees actually need transparent communication. We think we're helping people become resilient when we hide the truth from them, but that's not true. You can never build resilience from hiding what's going on. So when things are tough, that's where we need transparent communication. But the transparent communication that we have is one that is anchored in hope, is one that is anchored on the fact that we are going to be brutally honest about how bad things are, but we are not going to only stop there. We are going to make sure that after we've been brutal, we'll communicate the facts as they are, but then we can help and cultivate this thing called positivity, hope, and so on. And it's not the toxic positivity that suggests that we must deny when things are tough, because I also think that's problematic, where we dismiss our real feelings, where we do not acknowledge that things are tough. What real hope and optimism is confronting reality as it is, being transparent, but knowing how to acknowledge when things are bad, and then as a leader, know how to move people from where they are to where you want them to be.
Another state of hope. to a state of hope.
Exactly.
And I guess being empathetic, so empathetic leadership
Yes.
then also becomes critical, or the facets of being empathetic to the reality that not everyone is going to go to the state of hope that you want at the same time and at the
Yes.
same pace. But how do you then take the people that could go in quicker and those that could be left behind? How do you ensure that all your team is moving towards this good state of hope, that they can also contribute and see the vision that you are entrusting, or the team is entrusted with to drive the organizational objectives?
That is so good, because one of the, I guess, schools of thought that many leaders have is that when you're empathetic, you are going to breed people who are weak, people who do not perform. It sounds like a weak construct, empathy. And people think that empathetic leadership is mutually exclusive to performance, but that's not true. When I've dropped the ball, when I know I've dropped the ball and my leader trips me with a bit of empathy, as a human being, what it means to me is that I'm going to have to come back very strong. I'm going to make sure that I don't put my leader through that again. So empathetic leadership and understanding, knowing your people individually, as you say, knowing what is it that encourages Siphiwe, what is it that really encourages Noma, which then means leaders must be aware that your job as a leader, when you move to managing and leading other people, it should be 70% understanding people. It should be 70% around people issues, motivation, coaching, listening, and move away from the technical functionalities that you must deliver.
So in your role, I mean, you've worked with big corporates
Yes.
in South Africa and some global entities as well.
Yes.
In your role as an organizational behavior specialist, in your role as a speaker, as an author, which we will speak to that. What are the challenges that you are finding, or what are the things that you are finding that leaders are struggling with, especially in corporate South Africa? And I'll tell you why I'm asking the question. I come from a corporate space. I've been in corporate from a level of a practitioner or a graduate to a director level. I've got my own sort of judgment and opinions on corporate and based on my experience, right? And I think we still have a very long way to go. And like you said, I like it when you said this is a missed opportunity where we've had a crisis and the world was evolving, but you're finding that now corporates are kind of going back to the default position. What are the things that corporate leaderships are struggling with and that will not be sustainable for the future of work?
Yeah, wow, that is such a good question. You know, when I reflect about the type of engagements I've had in the last few years or so, maybe about 4 to 5 years ago, leaders would say to me, you know, Siphiwe, we really need you to come and inspire our team. We are sensing a culture of entitlement in the team, where they believe that when people come to the organization and feel like I deserve promotion and so on, and we used to speak about that. And so what then happened, in my view, is that then leaders swung the pendulum a little bit too much. Then they said, we are going to be harsh. We are not going to do this human-centered leadership kumbaya stuff. They actually believed in the fact that we must drive performance at all costs and never know the employee. So the challenges that are now, that we are seeing a lot in corporate, is that most of the organizational behavior outcomes that I study is things like job satisfaction. So you have a lot of people who are working who are not satisfied with their job. People are enduring weekdays and literally just, you know, looking forward to weekends. I'm there for the salary. There's no job satisfaction. There's another construct we call affective commitment in organizational behavior. In other words, I'm here, but I cannot give you my emotional investments into the organization. So affective commitment is going down. Job satisfaction is going down. Life satisfaction is going down. And because of those, then they wonder why the outcomes which leaders are interested in mostly, which is productivity and profitability, are not realized. And I think what people need to understand, that the so-called soft organizational behavior outcomes like job satisfaction, like affective commitment, like employee engagement, you think those things are soft, but those are the things that give you productivity and performance. And that's the kind of thing we're trying to remind every leader, that take care of these things. The outcomes that you want will take care of themselves.
So I've got an example now. I'm going to put you on the spot.
Yes.
So I've been in corporate for quite a number of years in the HR space, loved it, and I still love it now. I still practice in that space. I was an HR director, jumped ship. I went into entrepreneurship, consulting, similar thing that you do. We work with a number of big corporates as well. So I've built a team, and the team is growing. And I was having a conversation with another HR professional who is currently at Transnet as the head of Transnet, HR in Transnet. I was telling her, because she was my mentor and I used to report to her, I was saying to her, you know, the Norma of 7 years ago, when I was in corporate leading teams, national HR, etc., is totally different from this Norma. I feel when I was in corporate, I was harsh. I wanted things to be done, you know, get the jobs done, etc., all of that. But now that I'm running my own business, I have a softer. I don't know where that come from, but I'm more softer. So the question was, is it because I am emotionally invested that it is my business, the buck stops with me, and I need these people to actually deliver? So I'm still kind of questioning, but what do you think happened there? Like, what is the possibility of that happening? Because I feel like I'm too soft, you know. Hey, and sometimes I'm like, oh, these people don't know me. Hey, you know. But they're experiencing a different leader, and if you can walk into corporate, the spaces that I've been, and they will tell you something that's totally different. And of course, I was not compromising on the value for people. I was not compromising on ethics, but the style of leadership is different. So I'm now in a space where I'm trying to find a way to merge the two.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
What do you think the softer or the Norma that you are now, what's the impact on that on productivity and performance? Are your team members doing well, or do you think they could do better if they had that other Norma?
I think they could do better if they had the other Norma.
Yeah.
I think that's where I'm conflicted in asking myself these questions. But the kind of advice that I got from the HR former mentor was that tap into your traits and your strength as and when you need it. Do not be all this or do not be all that. So what does that mean in an organizational behavior concept and principles?
Yeah, it's the concept of situational leadership.
Yeah.
It's or what other people call contingency-based leadership. So generally speaking, we all have our primary ways of leading. So for example, I'm a very human-centered leader, and generally what that happens is that we talk a lot about virtues and vices in human behavior. So in other words, if human-centered leadership is a virtue and it's a good thing, there is what we call a deficient vice. In other words, if I do not have enough human-centered leadership, that's called deficient. But if I have too much, that's called excessive
vice.
Yes. So generally speaking, we then go to extremes. So good human-centered leadership is sitting in the middle. If you go there, you are excessive. If you go there, you are deficient. So the way to augment that is to know what your primary leadership style is, and then intentionally infuse the other ones, because there are situations that call for a bit of an autocratic leadership. There are situations that call for a bit of a decisive leadership. There are situations that call for a democratic leader because you get ideas from people. But generally, the unfortunate part is that
you'll always fall on your default.
Fall on our default. And you have to be very conscious of the fact that you cannot lead the same all the time. And also, you cannot lead different people the same way. When I think about my team, if someone is self-motivated, and has a lot of ownership and accountability, I cannot lead that person the same way I lead someone who lacks motivation and who never takes accountability.
Yeah.
Because what I will then do is I will treat everybody with the same brush, which will demotivate the people who are actually self-driven. So it's I think all of us fall into that trap. We just have to be conscious about not going from one extreme of the old Noma to the other extreme. The truth is somewhere there in the middle.
The truth is somewhere there in the middle. And we are taking a break where the truth is somewhere in the middle. We'll be back shortly. I am your host, Nomazibulo Tshanga. You are on the Leaders in Conversation, and I'm having this conversation with Siphiwe Moyo, and I will be back shortly.
In the heart of Africa's vibrant business landscape, there's a force driving change, innovation, and growth. Introducing Ziana Group, a beacon of bespoke professional services, pioneering the future of business solutions and technology across the continent. At Ziana Group, we are more than just consultants. We're partners in progress. Our ethos, people-centered, solutions-driven, and technology-inclined. With our cutting-edge AI-powered HR digital technology and a commitment to customer success, we empower organizations to unlock the unlimited potential of their people and optimize operational processes. In a rapidly evolving work landscape where talent is seeking control and new concepts like fractional talent are emerging, Ziana Group stands ready to navigate the challenges and seize the opportunities. Rooted in sub-Saharan Africa with a strong presence across multiple countries including Kenya, Nigeria, Mozambique, and more, Ziana Group is dedicated to driving superior business performance across the region. Join us in shaping the future of African business. Ziana Group, empowering the future of African business.
Hello, welcome back to the Leaders in Conversation. I am still in a leadership seat with Siphiwe Moyo, who is an organizational behavior specialist, an author, as well as international speaker, but we will get into that shortly. So Siphiwe, you have designed and taught postgraduate modules in organizational behavior, right? How do you see the field evolving, and what skills and knowledge are required by future leaders? And maybe we can also talk about what are the jobs of tomorrow looking like? Yes.
Yeah, so I think future emerging leaders, one of the things that they have to understand is this concept of technical versus adaptive leadership. That we are moving into an era where it is impossible to know everything. And the leaders who are going to lead people into that future are going to have to be comfortable with that discomfort, with the discomfort of not knowing everything.
Because I think that's still a challenge, right?
It's a big challenge. Many people want to know, many leaders want to know everything. And it is impossible in the change and the adaptive world that we're in. It is impossible to know everything, which then means you are going to have to rely on your team members to help you. But in order for you to rely on your team members to help you, then you're going to have to be okay with your team members knowing that you don't know stuff, and there are leaders who are not.
Yeah, that's a big one. Yeah, no, that's a big one in corporate,
Yeah.
where you are, you are leading teams, you are leading people, and remember, there's also another side to it, and I'm gonna get to it. The side where I am leading a team, I don't know everything. Some of my team members are more experts in other areas, and they probably know better than me. Right? Then there is when you flip the page, then there are, team members that feel that, why should I be led by this, leader? Because I'm practically doing everything. I know everything. I'm submitting everything. But they go to the leadership team and take the glory for what they've not done.
Yes.
So how do you then find the balance?
That is so true. Firstly, to balance that, every team member must understand this fact and get over it. Your leader will take responsibility for your work. Get over it. That's how it works.
That's the hierarchy.
That's
of
how
things.
hierarchy works.
Yes.
The job of the leader is to get results through others, and that's you.
That's you.
If that's you, and you have to be comfortable with that. If you're still grappling with that, you just don't understand the way corporate and the way the world works. Good leaders will still quote you and give you a bit of that glory
reward and recognition.
Also go to the exco and say, one of my team members did this. But the issue is they will take the glory, and that's how it should
And
work.
the buck stops with them.
It stops with them. If something does not happen, it's still they must take accountability. A leader can't go to Exco, for example, and say, Sipho in my team didn't do this. That's not a good leader.
No, that's not a good leader.
So that's a very interesting balance. But then when you think about this idea that leaders must also be comfortable with the fact that people who report to you will know more than you on certain areas. That's when you have become a general manager, that you have four or five functions under you. You are not going to know a little bit of everything, and your role is to coordinate effort. Your role is to create a great climate for performance. Your role is to make sure interpersonal relationships within the team are right. Your role is to make sure you get results through other people. Your role is to make sure that there is team cohesion. That's how it will work. And I think you have to be comfortable with having a conversation with your team members and saying, look, you know more in that area than me. My job is to coordinate the efforts of many people. So help me help you so that you can flourish. But as a team, we must flourish together. Which means you have to admit certain things that you don't know. Obviously, as a leader, you can't not know everything. There is something that you must know, and about being, looking forward into the future, cast vision, take people with you. They will start understanding your strengths as soon as you become comfortable and acknowledge that they know more in that area than you.
So what are the jobs of tomorrow? We talk about the jobs of yesterday.
Yeah.
We talk about the jobs of today, and then we talk about the jobs of tomorrow. And there's been a lot of studies. There's been a lot of reports that suggest that some of the jobs that we occupy today will not exist tomorrow and in the future. So what are those jobs looking like, and what are the skills that we need to equip ourselves? And there was a study done by Deloitte, and it suggests that we should now be building skills-based organizations, not job kind of you do your job and that's that. It must be, everything now must be skills based. So the culture must be a culture that has the skills to take the organization forward. So how does that look like, and what are those skills and those jobs of tomorrow?
Yeah, it's always a fascinating conversation that for me elicits two type of extreme responses. The first extreme is where people then panic and say, we're not going to have jobs in the future. Oh my God, AI is going to take our jobs, everything. And I think that's not the best response. On the other extreme, you then have people who are not moved, who never do anything to adapt. And I think those two are extremes. The truth again is in the middle. And for me, the report that I prefer is one that is done by the World Economic Forum. So they do this WEF Future of Jobs report almost every second year or maybe 4 years. What I love about that report is that it shows you the declining jobs, it shows you the emerging jobs, and this is the truth, and I want everybody to understand this. And it also shows that sometimes the gap between the declining jobs and the emerging job, it's not that huge. So many of us panic because, so one of the things in those reports that are declining jobs, for example, is a generalist HR officer.
Yes.
But in the emerging job, then people who do OD, it's an emerging job. And when you look into those skills attributes in there, you realize the gap is not that big. And I guess it comes to what Deloitte is saying, that sometimes you are obsessing about what you have studied instead of focusing on what are the skills within that degree that I have learned. So instead, a young graduate could be sitting there thinking, the degree that I did is absolutely useless. And nobody wants BSc candidates anymore. But there are certain skills
within that
degree that are still needed.
In another job. It might not be in your particular job.
Exactly. So pull up the skills, package the skills, sell the skills. And that's what I think.
You could not have said it better.
Yeah.
Pull the skills, package them, and sell the skills.
Absolutely.
Rather than saying, I am an electrical engineer and that's it.
Yeah.
That's what I am.
Yeah.
But what are the skills that you've learned as an electrical engineer? You could have learned problem solving, analytical capabilities, etc. And those skills might be needed as an, I don't know, operations manager, as an example, or whatever the skill that is needed at the time, whatever that role, is needed. I love that. So I grew up in an era where, I'm not sure if you also grew up in that era. I grew up in an era where when we went to the Nelson Mandela University now, it was PE Tech and UPE at the time. So there was they used to call it, so there was a technical campus, you know, and then there was a commerce kind of campus, your logistics, your HR and all that jazz. And then they used to call that campus the Mickey Mouse campus, right? I mean, it is, we were young,
yes,
and you do the Mickey Mouse, you guys are doing the Mickey Mouse courses. And understandably so, you could never take offense because the pointing system for technical entrance into university was higher than the commerce side technical points. I mean, you had to have some 50 there, and then maybe 30 on the other ones, etc. Because engineering requires maths and physics, and the other ones requires accounting, maybe sometimes not even accounting and maths, whatever the case may be. So I love today when I, because there was no such thing as HR, like no one knew about HR, but I fell in love with HR. I mean, I could have done BCom accounting. I went into the commerce stream. That's what I applied for. I got accepted in the first year after matric. However, my parents didn't have the money to pursue, so I then took a gap year, and then I started going to career counseling and whatnot. So they told me about industrial psychology. What is that? It's a study of humans, a study of people. Oh no, I think this is where I want to be, because I think I could be a good psychologist or whatever. That's how I then defaulted and ended up in human resources. I've never looked back. I don't regret it a cent, but. And then I always say, now, with those Mickey Mouse courses and those technical courses, how do we ensure that our kids, when they go into whatever course that they go into, they don't feel like they've chosen a Mickey Mouse course? I think what's your take on as a human, you know, behavioral specialist, and the way you see the world of work moving? Is there such a thing as a Mickey Mouse course nowadays? No,
and I feel like gloating. You guys thought we were useless. No, I'm joking. There is nothing like that. The truth, though, is...
For more from Leaders in Conversation with Nomazibulo Tshanga, you can continue listening to the rest of this episode on your audio streaming service app. Our podcast is available on various audio streaming platforms. Details in the description below. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you for watching.